Morning, it's 7:10 right now. We got some acceleration work today. I'm also going to answer the questions that I got on Instagram last week. Today's very simple. We're going to do some Yuri steps inside. So what that is just a band accelerated knee drive in the rack. After our warm-up, barefoot right now. I don't have my cleats on just yet because we're going to go inside and hit those. Come outside, do our med ball drop tosses. Then we got chain sprints. We're going to do 3 to 4 reps of 30 yards, hopefully 4. And then we're going to do 4 30-yard accelerations, full speed from the start. We're going to time the last 10 on the free lap. So that's a 5-yard shorter build-in than we did last week with the fly 10. So we got a 20-yard build-in with a 10-yard fly today. And I'll hit some of your questions in between. I'm probably going to finish those questions tonight after the session. I'll sit down and answer those questions on my couch and get you guys the information that you need. One of the questions I got was whether I progressed from tennis shoes to cleats for change of direction and speed work. My preference would be that we do. Unfortunately, we can't really wear cleats on this turf and the other surfaces that we sprint on. It's just not allowed. And I'm not going to make everybody buy rubber cleats or make our equipment guy buy us cleats. For the most part, we stay in tennis shoes, but I think it would be good to gradually ramp up to cleats, just because when players usually hit their spring training or the fall, like when you have that sudden increase in volume, their feet take a beating. How do you structure your workout plan? Get on my training team, 7-day free trial. Can't get a better answer than that. Can you please dive into how autoregulation is used for yourself and your athletes? There's 2 ways you would use it. The first is to avoid overreaching, and the second is to provide a better training effect by exhausting the development of a physical quality. So when you're doing it to exhaust a physical quality, you're performing reps or sets of an exercise until you see a performance drop off. So until you know that the body's no longer capable of producing an output that's going to elicit that adaptation that you're after. So if the rep is too slow, or if it's not as explosive as you want it to be, it's probably not going to deliver the training effect that you want it to. So if that's the case, you just stop doing what you're doing. As for preventing overreaching, in the in-season period, for example, maybe you have a velocity target. Once you fall too far below that velocity target, you stop the set, or you use reps in reserve. That's another form of autoregulation. You say, okay, I want you to finish this set with 3 RIR, but instead they finish it with 1 RIR. That's definitely a lot more fatiguing than if you finished a set with 3 reps in reserve. Those are things that you can tinker with to control how intense the set is. So if you're trying to avoid straining reps where they're really straining under load for a long time under tension, there's a lot of fatigue coming from something like that. You would want to provide auto-regulatory methods to avoid reps that are that heavy. If you are prioritizing freshness for a competition that week, ideally you're using the method where you're exhausting a physical quality in the off-season, and you're using the one where you're preventing overreaching during the in-season period or pre-season when things are ramping up really quick and you've got to control volume really well. All right, we're about to do curve sprints. We're gonna run a curve, and then once we hit the end of it, we're gonna sprint another 15 yards. We'll do that 2 times a side before we do the chain contrast. Next question was, do you focus on the technical part of sprinting with team sports? If so, how and when? So the one thing that I do is I really try to control the environment more so than I teach verbally. So for example, a chain sprint is gonna weigh their center of mass down. It's gonna incline their shoulders forward. It's going to put them in a little bit of trunk flexion, and it's going to orient their legs to where when they push the ground away, that force is more likely to go behind them. So if they're on that angle, it's easier to feel push the ground away, that cue that I like to give them. What I don't like to do is take A-skips and try to say like, this is going to transfer to your sprinting ability. I don't think it will, mainly because one, team sports are mostly horizontal based. There's more horizontal sprinting, shorter bursts of speed. If you want to make the argument that A-skips help at max velocity, I could see that argument a little better. But with acceleration work, the one thing that I get from A-skips is being able to reinforce this. Just putting the foot down and then using your hip flexor quad group to bring it straight back up and stay front side, okay, instead of cycling like this. So if there's anything that I like to get from the A-skips, it's training the hip flexor to understand that concept of getting here, straight up to the top, replace it down, straight up, replace it down. Not this long, windy, cyclical butt kick action like that. That's not what we want. We want to avoid that, and I think A-skips have helped me teach that more so than anything. I think you've talked about this before, but differences in professional and college setting. Professional, you're managing people that have a lot more mileage on their bodies, I think. It's way more demanding than college. It really teaches you how to manage workload really well and be an essentialist and accomplish the minimal effective amount that you need to keep that player on the field and performing at a high level. I think that for college athletes, it means more. I think they get more utility out of strength and conditioning. They don't look at it as like a chore. They enjoy it a little more. I think it's a little more fun. It's more engaging. But if you want to hear more about what I have to say about pro sports and college, I answer this in length in my question highlight on my page, on my Instagram page. So go read that and flip through those questions. Around how much would you decrease volume in a deload week? This is really relative to what you've been doing, but I would say a rough estimate is like 25%. I don't know the exact number. I just know they've been doing this amount. We're going to do substantially less, and we're going to reduce the intensity and focus on moving for speed and not straining so much and focusing on mobility more. It's more about what you're doing than really how much. I feel like you should put more emphasis into what you're actually doing, changing the exercises, maybe going from pins instead of a deep squat, or maybe doing less grip work, or maybe doing a little more mobility stuff and feel good stuff during that period. There's a lot more to it than just volume percentage drop-offs. How do you bucket who does more eccentric, isometric, or concentric training in the team setting? First thing I'll say is go back to my force plate post. The athletes that don't break really well, they have a really long, drawn out eccentric duration. They don't have a sharp spike when they load on the force plates. They have trouble bearing eccentric force quickly, so I give the eccentrics mostly to them. Isometrics are mainly given to athletes who have a break in that curve, so when they go up, it plateaus, then comes back up and goes down again on the force plate. So that means they're dissipating some of that force they're trying to load, so they're not able to store it due to either tendon weakness. They have to develop the tendons more and spend more time in deeper ranges developing strength there so that they're comfortable there to transition that force from negative to positive. Concentric training is really something I do with everybody early on in the year because the tendons haven't been trained to store and release energy yet to that point. So concentric jumping from like a dead stop trap bar, seated rocker jump, seated box jump, things like that are good to build jumping tolerance. So I use concentrics with them mostly, and concentrics are also really good in season. When their tendons are taking a beating, the stress is really high, and they're getting a lot of contacts already from the sport and practice. So like I've spoken about in this video today with the autoregulation, exhausting a physical quality, doing reps until you drop off to a certain percentage. My best time today is 1.02, my worst time is 1.04. I am gonna add another rep of the 20-yard build into a 10-yard fly because I'm not at that 3% drop off yet. But for the sake of time, I am going to stop after this last rep. So I didn't have this rep planned, but because my times aren't dropping off, I'm gonna get a little more juice out of this squeeze and we're gonna hit one more, that'll be it. All right, so I'm home now, taking a quick break. I've been programming for a couple hours, getting things ready for the fall. We're gonna hit these questions again. So next question was, in a weekend league, Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday game, what or how many days a week do you train? So I'll tell you what I did. College softball and college baseball, you have weekend series against conference opponents. That'll usually be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Because the NCAA mandates a designated off day, that off day is usually Monday. So we can't train Monday. That means if I want to train 2 days a week, it's got to be Tuesday, Thursday. So Thursday is always a lift the day before a conference game. So that requires that you pull some strings and you make some things happen to make that session not so demanding. So the way that I lay out my training in season, I have a strength day and I have more of a speed and dynamic day on day 2, like a primer session that'll get them ready for that weekend series. So that day 1 is to preserve maximal strength. We will do heavier sets, and then on day 2, that speed day, we'll sprint, we'll do some bounding, we'll do some power skipping, we'll do a lot of jumps, we'll do plyos with a little less lifting. And a really good tool that I used on that day were isometrics, overcoming isometrics namely, and things that were more concentric in nature, so pin squats, pin split squats, things that don't involve that eccentric muscle action, because that's going to create that muscle damage that's going to leak into those games and potentially impede performance. If you don't have a Sunday game, this is good because then Sunday will be your off day. I would train Monday, Wednesday, then you have that Tuesday, Thursday for down days, and then you could play Friday, Saturday. So I would give you that recovery time on Friday. Now Friday, you can still recover well if you just microdose a little bit of speed work, or you do some mobility work, or you do something to keep your body fresh. Sometimes it's really easy to get too deep into a lull and this rut you get into when you don't do anything. And I kind of feel this sometimes with myself and my athletes. Sunday I don't really do much exercise. Maybe I'll do some cardio, maybe I'll go for a 2-mile run. If I don't do that, I come into Monday feeling awful and I feel flat. And I feel like athletes come into Monday sessions like that more often than not because they'd rather just rest and do absolutely nothing. And then you got to shake that rust off. So in order to not let rust accumulate, so to speak, as a figure of speech, you could do something on Friday like a couple sprints, med ball throws, bounding, just for 20-30 minutes. It doesn't have to be a crazy long session, just to keep your body primed. So Matthew earlier asked about the differences between professional and college setting for coaching, and he piggybacked off that and said, any suggestions toward a coach deciding between pro and college? If you're early in your career, I'm going to tell you to get the job that you can get. You need experience, period. Pro baseball is a very unique situation. I think you're going to learn a tremendous amount of information in pro ball. Like I've spoken about on my question highlight story on my Instagram page. Again, if you look at that highlight, you'll see what I have to say about this topic in a little more length than I'm giving you right now. But you're going to learn force plates, you're going to learn good periodization strategies, you're going to learn how to train athletes on the road, you're going to learn how to train athletes in general when they're playing 6 games a week, you're going to learn rehab protocols, you're probably going to share an office with an athletic trainer at your affiliate, or I don't know how it works at in other sports, but I'm just telling you from a baseball perspective, I shared my office with my athletic trainer every single day. We went over GPS reports, we modified the speed work for that day, we went over hamstring protocols that we were dealing with. Literally any injury, there was that hand-in-hand relationship between us where I handled one side of it, he handled the other. Okay, what are you going to handle today? I can handle this today. That might not look the same the next day. So you learn the relational aspects of developing a program in a 360-degree fashion with the other departments. In college, that's a little more rare. There might be a little more segregation between the departments. So the onus is really on the individuals in those departments to come together. It's not a blanket expectation like it is in some pro organizations, if that makes sense. So with that being said, I think you're gonna become an expert communicator if you work in pro sport. I feel like the stakes are much higher because you're dealing with $1 million assets, your players. I mean, these players are paid $8 to $10 million at signing, some of these guys. So if you're not collaborating and something goes wrong, someone's getting fired. So you're gonna learn how to deal with that pretty quick. I've seen you taking collagen and creatine. Are there any substances or vitamins you daily dose and any benefits from them? Thanks for all your content. Appreciate you supporting. I take collagen for a couple reasons. One, it's good for skin, it's good for hair, it's good for your nails, it's good for any kind of wound that you have. It will heal wounds faster. That's really beneficial for me because I'm type 1 diabetic. So for those who don't know, type 1 diabetics have a little more trouble healing, recovering. The things that people deal with as far as recovering and healing from things are a little more difficult for me. So collagen is really good for that purpose. It's good for maintaining the integrity of my tendons, my ligaments, because higher blood sugars damage those tissues. So my reasoning is a little different than maybe what I would tell someone else, but that's why I take collagen. Collagen is great for you. It's a building block of many different parts of your body. I really don't see a downside with it. Plus, you're getting 20 grams of protein around there per scoop. You can just throw it in your morning coffee. It doesn't taste like anything, and you can just ride with that. Creatine, on the other hand, is going to help you get a little bigger. It's going to increase strength. It's going to increase power and speed production. Creatine also has cognitive benefits. Creatine is one of the safest, most researched supplements ever. So I'm not going to say much more about it. I also take magnesium. Magnesium is one of the most commonly utilized micronutrients in the body, but there's a lot of deficiencies amongst people in the country, mainly because of our diet, this American diet. Magnesium is going to help you sleep, it's going to help you recover, it's going to help with cognition, digestion. There are so many things that magnesium helps with. That's all I've got today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will be back in the next couple days with a training vlog. Hope to see you guys there. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below. You can find my Instagram handle in the description as well. And drop a comment on this video with another question that I could answer for you either here or in a future video. I appreciate you joining. I'll see you next time.